And welcome back to Irish Insight, episode 3. I got my two guys with me. Brian, how we doing tonight?
Doing pretty well. Got some Notre Dame basketball recruiting we're going to go over today. We haven't really talked about Notre Dame basketball thus far, but it is not strictly Notre Dame football. Irish Insight is basically all Notre Dame sports.
Yep, and then Andrew, how we doing tonight?
Good, man. We got the recruiting digest today, so get some insight there. Excited to get it off. Let's get it going.
So, if any of you guys follow our Twitter, we tweeted about how the Irish have a big commitment coming up Monday night. Brian, you want to get into it a little bit? Terrence Williams, he's a 4-star from the D.C. area.
Yeah, so Terrence Williams, I would say him and Hunter Dickinson are the guys that they are going the hardest after for the past couple months, and probably the two most realistic guys to commit relatively soon. Like Michael said, Terrence Williams is committing tonight, 8 Eastern time. A week ago, I thought he was going to go to Notre Dame, but honestly, I would be shocked if he announces that he's going to Notre Dame tonight, because everything I've been reading so far on Monday morning and today or Monday morning is that he's basically a lock to go to Georgetown. And a lot of times when these prospects say that they're committing at ADT, like they already have informed coaches who they're going to. And honestly, Notre Dame offered another big, like Monday at like noon.
Same position.
That's kind of fishy. It makes me think that Terrence Williams is going to Georgetown. I doubt he goes to Michigan, but it makes me think he's going to Georgetown, which is not good, obviously. I mean, they received a big pickup transfer in Cormac Ryan, so it hasn't been a horrible summer. But the fact that they still don't have a 2020 guy committed, it kind of pisses me off. You'd think 2020 is such a big class because they didn't sign anybody in 2019. And 2020 is such a big class because especially in the front line, after Mooney graduates after this year, they have a huge need in the front line. I mean, they have Juwan Durham. That's pretty much it. I don't really expect Chris Doherty to be much. He's just going to be a role player probably, unless he just shocks everybody. And Terrence Williams is like kind of a clone of Bonzie Colson, undersized big that honestly 5 years ago probably wouldn't even be close to the top 100, but now people are getting smarter, and just because you're undersized doesn't mean you can't play, especially because of everybody's talking about positionless basketball. So this is perfect fit for Notre Dame's offense because he'd be a perfect small ball 4. But like I said, I would be shocked if he commits to Notre Dame. What do you guys think about this?
So when I looked at it earlier today, he was at like a 60% to go to Georgetown at the Crystal Ball. Now, granted, these are not always right, but I would say they're right about 70% of the time. And when they have like above like 85%, they're probably right like 90% of the time. His Crystal Ball now has gone up to 91%. So I would say he's pretty much a lock to go to Georgetown.
Oh, God.
Like that makes you think something's been leaked if it goes up that high.
Right. So, like you were saying, they did get Ryan, so that kind of does count towards this class, but they didn't sign anyone in the last class, and the only person other than Terrence Williams is Hunter Dickinson. If they don't get him, they're literally going to have to just offer some 2 and 3 stars that they were not going to offer at all and hope that they come to Notre Dame because they have no bigger offers. Like that's what it's going to come down to if Hunter Dickinson somehow doesn't go to Notre Dame. Even if he does, you still have a lot of scholarships left, you know? So it's like you still have to find 1 or 2 guys. I mean, the minimum that they sign in this class should be 2 guys, whether it's whoever, but they should sign 2 guys this class. So
I don't know how many scholarships they have available. I want to say it's like 4 or 5 in this class. Like it's a lot because they don't have all this. So they need. I would pump that up to 3. I think they need to get 3.
Right, unless they're somehow getting another transfer, but I do not see it. And that's also tough to rely on because you can really strike out in the transfer scene. But I don't know. It could if Hunter Dickinson does not go to Notre Dame, this could be the worst 2-year stretch of Notre Dame basketball recruiting ever. Like,
I agree.
Andrew,
and it's just so sad because it came they had a nice 3-year run, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2 Elite Eights in that. 2015, they were good enough to win it all in 2015, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But you'd think you'd capitalize on that success and then start reeling in a bunch of nice guys. I mean, 2017, they got DJ Harvey. That was a massive get, although it turned out to be an absolute shit show because he just transferred and he did not fit into what Mike Gray wants to do. 2018, yes, they had a good class, but it's still, we don't know how good that is yet. 2019, obviously a huge whiff because they signed nobody. And I wrote actually an article about this a month or two ago. It's because they're overstepping their boundaries basically with offering 5 stars. And they've been better in the 2020 class because they've offered like maybe 1 or 2 one and dones. But
two. I'm looking right now. They have 2 guys, but I agree. There was like 2 straight classes where they were offering like every 5-star they could think of.
Yeah, I was like, dude, when Isaiah Stewart last year cut his list to 6 and Notre Dame wasn't even on it, that was just like the biggest slap in the face of all time because Notre Dame was on him from the get-go before all these guys. He ended up going to Washington. I thought that was a little fishy. Maybe he's getting paid. But honestly, I'm sure a lot of these guys, a lot of these teams are paying players, and Notre Dame can't do that. And Notre Dame's got to realize that and just be like, okay, well, we're not going to throw them money, so let's stop offering these NBA one and dones.
Andrew, what do you think about the whole situation?
I was going to bring up that point of the so that it's just ever since it kind of reminds me of when Texas A&M joined the SEC. Everyone was kind of like in Missouri. Remember when they first joined? They actually kind of made some noise in the
Missouri went to a conference championship.
Exactly, and it kind of, in a sense, you could say, and same with A&M, they made noise, but that's obviously they're a little bit better than Missouri, obviously, but it kind of saved them in the recruiting realms of, okay, we can hang in the SEC, so we're going to get some commits that way. And when Notre Dame joined the ACC, it was a kind of a little nerve-wracking, and they started having some success there. And like you guys pointed out, they're the back-to-back Elite Eights, winning the ACC tournament, and it was like they're on a roll, and they're just landing some pretty solid players. And then these last 2 years have been like, who is replacing the – I mean, I saw a picture. It was Jerry Grant, Demetrius, Bonzi, Pat, and it was Zach and Pat. There was like 5 guys that were like NBA talent on the floor at one time. Like, that's insane to think about.
Yeah, Notre Dame might – I mean, I don't want to get negative here, and they could turn the tide around, but that might honestly be the best roster Notre Dame will ever have.
I think it would be incredible for them to top that. I mean, that team was insane.
And the thing is, how did they get there? They offered like fringe top 100 guys, and they just hit on all of them.
Well, yeah,
and they didn't get it by offering one and dones or 2 and dones or 5 stars. So they got away with what made them good, and it's been a catastrophic failure.
I think
I would say last year they sucked, but 2 years ago they were good. I don't think they were preseason ranked, and that's like 12. I was like, they weren't going to be that good, but if they don't have as many injuries,
they definitely make the tournament.
And I think they get like a 4 or 5 seed that year.
I think kind of just touch up on everything is I kind of agree with what you're saying, Andrew. They kind of went in the league, and then I feel like it was one of those things. I don't know if this is a similarity to A&M and Missouri though, but maybe Missouri because they're not used to success. Yeah. They kind of got in the league, had some success, and then they started trying to recruit with Alabama, and it's like you can't do that. Maybe, and now Notre Dame's kind of doing we want a back-to-back Elite Eights. We want an ACC title. We're Notre Dame. We're going to recruit with the Carolinas and stuff. And it's like you're never going to for basketball. Notre Dame has never been getting those guys. And the problem is a lot of these guys, because Notre Dame's a cool school, you're probably like they're going to finish in maybe the top 5 with them. So you're waiting around for these guys for so damn long, and you're losing out on these other recruits. And then these guys are picking the blue bloods, Washington somehow always randomly gets 5-star recruits. But like teams like this, you sit there and you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait, and then these guys all commit somewhere else, and it's like, well, I'm not going to be your second option. I'm not going to come back and now commit to Notre Dame. So it's hurting them almost for going for these guys because, like Brian said, they have not gotten one of them, and then they're kind of just sat in the bottom of it like, okay, where do we go from here?
The only 5 stars they should ever offer, or is it if it's something like Demetrius Jackson, where it's like right in your backyard, you just have to? Or
they go to Indiana.
Or DeMatha, because that's like Bray has massive connections for DeMatha.
Well,
those are pretty much the only 2 scenarios. And like they're offering Zaire Williams right now from California. Like, what the fuck?
Well, like
it's fine. It's fine to offer, but you just have to know that he's probably not coming.
Yeah, I agree. I agree because you never know the random kids that are like Notre Dame's. I've actually always loved.
Yeah,
but you can't pursue them as hard as you are and then lose out on everyone else because they can still get some solid 3 to 4 star guys, but you lose out with them when you take all the time to recruit a guy like Isaiah Stewart or something like that. And Brian, to your point of the DeMatha 5-star, Hunter Dickinson is the 30th ranked player. He's literally he's on the fringe of being a 5-star. He was a 5-star for a bit. Now he's a 4-star. So but he's right now they predict him going to Notre Dame. That's like one of those connections that you said. Unless they go to DeMatha or they're like literally, I'll give the state of Indiana that's from Indianapolis and up north from there up. Like you're not, like don't spend time on Romeo Langford. You're never gonna get him stuff like that. But like maybe an Indy guy and stuff like that, you can get him. Fort Wayne stuff like that. But yeah, I'm with you. Like that should be the only way. I'm okay with you offering them, and if they want to come visit, they visit. But don't spend all your time on this one guy, and then you have like a 3 or 4 star who's ranked in a 150 or below, who's a great player, who fits what Notre Dame needs to do, who's won Notre Dame a lot of basketball games, and then you don't get him because of what you were doing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Terrence Williams is exactly what they should be doing, and I assume they lost out on him. But I mean, they were right there. It's not like he left. He wasn't on there. His top 6 or top 7. Notre Dame. It came down to Georgetown and Notre Dame. It sounded like, and I mean, it pisses me off that they're not going to get him. But that's the type of scenario they need to do every time because it's realistic. And to put it even more as a nail in the head, Notre Dame just offered another 4-star power or a 3-star power forward as of 3 minutes ago. So his name's Zed Key. He's like a 250 guy. So I think it's pretty clear that they know Terrence Williams is gone, or else they wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
So they're trying to fill the 4 because Terrence Williams is done. Hunter Dickinson is still right there to be the 5. If they get him, he'd start freshman year, I'm pretty sure. They're also heavily into Puff Johnson. He's more of a wing, I would say, but he's Cameron Johnson's younger brother. He's a stud, top 50 guy. He's basically as good as it gets as what I would say Notre Dame should pursue. Right now, he's ranked 49th. If you go any more higher up than that, I just think Notre Dame doesn't have a shot. So that's a good one right there. They lost out on Trey Galloway, but that's pretty irrelevant after the Cormac Ryan signing. It just didn't matter. They don't want another 6'5" wing. That's barely an above-average athlete. They don't need more of that. They already have Dane Goodwin and Robbie Carmody. So, I mean, Bryce Thompson, DJ Stewart, like those are 2 guys that they're ranked in the top 25. I don't think they're going to get them. Would be amazing if they did. And then Jamal Mashburn Jr. is very realistic. But between Hunter Dickinson, Terrence Williams, and Puff Johnson, that's the 3 guys that are basically most interested in Notre Dame. They need to get 2 of those, and they already lost out in Terrence Williams. And I think it's just a pretty bad start to the summer, especially after they swung and missed in 2019, because they could end up being good. I want to say they probably barely make the tournament this upcoming year, but that's maybe ambitious. But the year after this year, I think that's their year to be like, holy shit, this team is back to competing in the ACC, because that 2018 team or that 2018 class is juniors. And then you lose Mooney and Gibbs, but I mean, Mooney will be a big loss. But then you have Cormac Ryan coming back, who I think is going to be probably the best team player on the roster after he comes back after being sit out because of the transfer rules. But that's where this 2020 class would be so big. If you get somebody like Hunter Dickinson, you can just inject him in the starting lineup, and then that's just a really good team. But so far, just hasn't been there yet. 0 commitments. It's August. It's almost August. I mean, I would have said they probably needed to have one maybe 2 guys by this point. They got nothing, so I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, to have nothing at this point it's not where you want to be, but I think, yeah, it's going to be a year of struggles. I mean, I don't see how it could really. I think it'll improve from last year. Obviously, just based on the fact that odds are
that was the worst team I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean that was abysmal. I mean it can't get much worse. 1 and 2, I don't think injuries will play. Hopefully injuries don't plague him as much. Obviously, but
yeah.
It was like Rex Flicker's greatest game of his career at Notre Dame when he played Purdue in the Crossroads Classic. Had like 10 assists with like 8 minutes of play left and was actually running the offense better than TJ Gibbs was, because TJ Gibbs is not a point guard. And right when he does that, he tears his ACL. I just couldn't believe it. I don't think they make the tournament, even if he does do that, because they just didn't have much talent. But it just sucks to see them go through injuries all the time. But what do you guys think? I mean, what do you guys think about recruiting? Anymore else? Because then we could talk about maybe the upcoming season just for a little bit.
Did they just offered a local kid, correct?
They offered 2 local kids, St. Joe High School.
2021 though.
2021 kid from Riley and kid from St. Joe.
Okay.
See, I think they're changing their recruiting strategy because they never offer this early.
And I think they're going back to old, but offering earlier than they normally do.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea because obviously they need to change something. And these assistants, Ryan Humphrey and Ryan Ayers, I thought they'd make the recruiting so much better because they're more relatable. They're not like 50-year-old men that can't really relate to these kids.
Yeah.
And I thought they'd be getting – they probably thought they could compete because of the new staff, and it's clearly not the case. They're going back to what they've always done in the past, which is anywhere from 50 to 150 top guys, which is fine. I mean, North Carolina does that besides what was his name? I know Cole Anthony, and last year, Nasir Little. Before that, they never got one and dones, and they won multiple national titles with it. So Notre Dame does not need to get those guys.
Yeah, but North Carolina also gets the McDonald All-Americans that don't go one and done. But yeah, I get what you're saying. They one and done's definitely not Notre Dame's criteria.
No way. It'll never be.
Yeah.
They're always in Notre Dame football's shadow. That will never change. Only thing that could maybe change that is if they actually cut down the nets one year, which it happened in 2015. But I don't know. I don't know if it'll all happen in my lifetime, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, they just can't compete with Carolina. It was funny because in 2018, that recruiting class, Nate Lasewski, I think that's how you pronounce. He's going to be a sophomore next year. It was actually down to North Carolina and Notre Dame, and he chose Notre Dame over North Carolina. And I honestly think that kind of went to the staff's head, holy shit, we can compete with North Carolina and Duke now, and you just can't. And they never will be able to.
Yeah, I think Dirty Mike started feeling himself a little bit and thought he could start hanging with those guys, and then he realized.
And maybe got lazy.
Yeah. To be fair, they did pull off some pretty amazing. A lot of teams, you can't. In the last 10 years, there's not too many schools I can say they went to back-to-back Elite Eights. So
yeah, they had the greatest 3-year stretch, arguably in Notre Dame basketball history. I was just like,
yeah. The 2015 season. that was a couple inches away from. Really, they were beating Kentucky the entire game.
All game.
They should have won that game.
God, that still pisses me off, man.
Yeah.
All game. And then the next year, you still go back to Elite Eight. You win an ACC championship in 2015. So I think they might have gotten a little over their head and late. I think they got both. I think they got over their head and they were like, look, we're playing with these schools. These kids want to come here. And then I also think they got lazy as in, we're going to back-to-back Elite Eights. Why wouldn't these kids want to come here? So I think it was a little bit of both.
And then I think they may have gotten a little bit too optimistic with, like you said, Brian, how that team that we said maybe the greatest roster of all time became. that was very, very fortunate for all those players to pan out. You know, like those were like the 3-star guys, like the fringe guys, like you're saying. They all pan out. That doesn't happen all the time.
Pat Connaughton probably doesn't go to Notre Dame if Boston College or whoever tells him he can't play baseball and basketball. There's so many dominoes that fell in their way. Like, Pat Connaughton gets drafted right away in baseball.
Connection. Yeah. So Connaughton ended up better than advertised. Jaren Grant way better than advertised. Demetrius, I mean, he was a McDonald's All-American, but I mean, he even exceeded expectations.
Yeah, he was at least every bit of his potential. Yeah.
And then, I mean, that one year when they lost, he was a junior. They lost to North Carolina. I'm pretty sure he had like 35 in that tournament game, and single-handedly made them not lose by 50. But then Zach August was as good as you could have ever expected. That year, Bonzie Colson was actually like their 6th or 7th as a freshman.
Yeah.
He was like 180th in the country. Like, that was a lot of luck. They just like had a lot of diamonds in the rough. And Matt Farrell was like in the 500s.
And you got,
unbelievably.
Stephen VJ.
That's crazy.
Stephen VJ played their roles extremely well.
Yeah. Like VJ, I would say is the one guy on that roster that was like just as good as we thought. Because I thought he was going to be a little bit better than he ended up. But that's just like out of those 7 guys, they hit a home run with 6 of them basically.
His junior year, he had his best year by far.
Yeah.
Who was the other shooter?
Steve Festuria.
Yeah, he was also
Stone Cold Steve.
Stone Cold Steve, babe. Yeah.
So how about so they just
that's like 10 guys in a row. Like they were nailing on the teeters.
Yeah, I agree. And what made them separate themselves is they didn't offer these 5-star guys, which allowed them more time to properly assess these 3-stars and 4-stars. And that roster was perfectly constructed. I mean, it had a bunch of shooters. It had 2 guys in Grant and Demetrius that could get into the lane. And outside of that, a bunch of shooters that didn't turn the ball over. They were decent on defense, like above average. But, who really cares? You got to be able to score in today's type of basketball to win. So, I just don't know what they're doing. Hopefully it changes with this 2020 class. It's too early to say it's been a failure, but I don't think it's
there's a lot to still happen. But, yeah. So, let's just a little quick predictions for the season. Brian, you want to start us off?
I want to say they finished like 7th in the ACC, 7th or 8th or something like that. Get maybe like a 7 seed and just maybe win 1 game in the tournament, and that's it. Like, you can get lucky, but people over exaggerate how you can get lucky means. Like, normally a team that's like a 7 or 8 seed that gets far in the tournament has an absolute stud at guard who can just go out and drop 30 every game. I don't think there's no discrepancy. Notre Dame does not have that this year. TJ Gibbs had a really good sophomore year, but he's proven to not be able to handle the lead guard capabilities. So I just think their ceiling is like win 1 game in the tournament and that's it.
Andrew?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty decent prediction. I think going off of last year's performance, I think that may be even a little optimistic. I think they still will make the tournament, though. I was going to say 5 or 6 seed, though. Probably a 6 seed. I'll go with the 6 seed, and I think they can make some noise, though. Really, in the tournament, it's tough to obviously predict that shit when it comes down to matchups and whatnot. I think they could potentially match up well with Mooney. Maybe having a day.
Mooney's an absolute stud, but I think there's the 2 guys are going to be TJ Gibbs has to know his goddamn role and just literally be a spot up shooter. Just don't stop driving to the lane. It's like he's not that athletic. Like, he's not. So he can't play above the rim whatsoever. The biggest, him knowing his role and Prentice Hubb's development is huge. Prentice Hubb is like the one guy on the roster that can break somebody down and get into the lane. Last year, I honestly didn't think the talent was that bad, but they just had a bunch of spot-up shooters who couldn't get in the lane, and they shot horrifically because of that. So if you can get people that can go into the lane more, it frees up space. And then these shooters that I think they're not nearly as bad as they shot last year. Once they get some space, can step into jump shots. I think you guys have a team that is going to like a lot more talented than it showed. What about you, Mike? What do you think?
Andrew, do you have anything else to?
No, not really. I think it's going to be a battle. It's not going to be. It's going to be one of those things where every game matters for them to lock up.
They can't go out and lose to
they can't.
State and IU in non-conference.
Exactly.
They beat IU next year in the cross.
Yeah, they need to win. They need to win the games they should, which they struggled to do that last year. And then I know the injuries definitely turned some tides on those games, but having to just win the games you're supposed to win, be a lot stronger on the road than they were.
Dude, I think.
Right there.
Dude, do you know how bad they've been at home the past few seasons? Like
that used to be their staple.
They never lost at home.
Yeah,
they need to get back to stop dropping like 4 or 5 ACC games a year at home. Like it's absurd.
Yeah, I think
has the attendance been shitty for that, or was it just
good? Like after football, but up until January, the attendance is dog shit.
But it's always been like that, so it's not like But I think I would agree with both of you. I think it's going to be a little season that's going to, it's going to be hard for them to make the tournament for me. I think they can do it. I mean, playing all those freshmen last year definitely helps you this year because they all got experience. And then bringing back an experienced guy like Rex Pfluger, who was hurt all year, is going to help them just in terms of – I think that can help them in terms of road games, just composure-wise and all that stuff, having a guy on the road who's been there before. I don't know. I mean, you hope since they bring back basically everyone that they're better. I don't know how much better. I think they're going to fall into that like 9 to 12 range seed if they make the tournament. Maybe be like one of the last 4 in. But I mean, their non-conference isn't like overly hard. So they can't drop the team games that they should not. They can't lose to teams like Boston College and those teams at home. They got like NC State, they lost last year by like a bucket. Like you can't drop those games at home. You need to win those games. And if you do that, yeah, they can easily make the tournament and not be that good, but they can still make the tournament. They could win maybe one game, like you're saying, Brian. Tournament's all about having guards who can, break you down and get you a bucket.
That's why Hub is so crucial.
So for me, I think it's going to be a little tough, but I do think they can make the tournament. For sure.
So last year, I don't think they were nearly as bad as their record indicated. It's just because they had such horrific guard play, decision making down the stretch of games. That's why they lost so many close games. That's why in 2015 they had the best tandem of guards in the maybe not the country, but in the ACC with Grant and Demetrius, and they just made so many good decisions down the stretch of games, and that's how they won it. I mean, you got to have good guard play to make decisions, and TJ Gibbs. I cannot stress enough how disappointed I was with him last year. So, I don't know. I don't think the guard play will be nearly as bad, but I just don't think they have the guards like they did in 15 and 16. Because even like in 2016, Matt Farrell was a stud too. So,
he really Matt Farrell turned out to be so solid. Like he was. Yeah. He filled Demetrius' shoes about as best as you could ever hope from.
Yeah. And I couldn't why didn't Bray redshirt him? If they would have had him last year, that would have been a godsend because he would have been the point guard and been able to run this offense.
Oh, that would have been sweet. They had that literally fixes all their problems. That literally solves everything because then Gibbs can shoot and he doesn't have to worry about anything else.
And it was just I don't know why he did it. I honestly didn't think he thought Farrell was going to be good and was like, I don't want to have this guy for 5 years. And
Dude.
Look what happened.
Oh man.
What about you, Mike? You predicted it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. I always dogged Rex Pfluger, but obviously I was wrong in saying that he'd get better when he left because just Nick Jogo just continually proves that he's never going to ever be decent. So
I think Rex will have a solid year though, coming kind of a second chance type thing. I think he'll be solid.
I just think he's got to know his role, play maybe like 25, 30 minutes a game. I think he should come off the bench and be the backup point guard. But we'll see if that actually happens.
Yeah, Bray never not starts his senior, so
yeah,
I doubt that happens. But so that does it for our basketball segment. Appreciate everyone tuning in.